Liv Gamble, at 25 years of age, was head of a whole sports department at a school with 1,200 heads. She's an amazing young woman, and she goes through her journey over being targeted as a bit of an up-and-coming leader, and the additional stress and anxiety that can come with that, and how do you rise up to the occasion. But then also being humble enough in yourself to truly accept that actually at this point in time in that role, it's probably not appropriate, and maybe a different path for her career trajectory is probably appropriate. So we really unpacked that conversation and what was going through her head, and then also the healing that needs to get done post that experience. So that's where she's at, and she talks about how she manages family, and family is just such an amazing rock, and I'm so lucky to know Liv. She's my cousin and I love her so much. So if you're a teacher and someone who works with children and young people a lot, this would be a perfect podcast for you. Liv Gamble, you're here for the iyarn
I am.
podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we like starting off these iyarn yarns with a favourite quote.
Love that. Okay. Yeah.
So what's yours?
I'd have to say my absolute favourite quote is that without fear, there is no bravery.
Without fear, there's no bravery. I like it. It's simple.
Yeah, really simple.
So you came across it reading a book? Or?
Yep, literally hit the nail on the head. Yeah, reading a book. I can't remember. I think it was a character said it, or it was. Maybe it was a tattoo or something. I can't remember, but I was like, I loved that quote.
And you kind of draw on that every now and then?
Yeah, I think so. I think mostly when you're afraid, you kind of feel like if you're going to push through, that's where you show your true bravery. You know, rather than if you're not scared of something, you're not being brave because you're just doing something. Whereas if you're fearful and then you get through it, you're like, wow, that's cool. I was pretty brave there.
So I guess in this kind of world, like, are you like jumping in swimming with sharks, or where does fear come up for you?
I think it's both. Like, I do love a bit of adventure because I like that thrill a little bit, but I think sometimes in your everyday life you're afraid of things, aren't you? Even in a social scene or whatever it might be, you kind of have a little bit of fear, and I think I like falling back on that if you get through something or stick it out, you are showing bravery. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the swimming with sharks or jumping out of an aeroplane, even though that's good too,
Yeah.
It's a bit of both.
Well, it was cool. We, I had a bit of a yarn earlier today, and you were filling me in about, this recent, 18 months. Yeah. And this with your career. Like, how old are you now?
So I'm 27. 27
years old. And when you were 26, it would have been mid-25, you were head of a whole sports department.
Yep, that's correct.
So what school was that at?
At Santa Maria, which is a local school down in Adderale.
Yeah, and how many students at Santa Maria?
So we're a 5 to 12 school, so we've got 1,200 kids.
1,200 kids? Yeah. And you were head of sports?
Head of sport, yeah.
Far out. So what kind of things were you doing day to day?
So day to day, it's looking after all the co-curricular sports. So obviously we're part of the AGC system, so we play all the schools around here, St Hilda's, PLC, MLC, we play them. So I'm organising all the fixtures for sport and buses and venues. Wow. Probably some of the bigger events I did were the carnivals, because those are literally organising a carnival with 1,200 kids and about 200 staff, and I'm in charge of it. So been a big job, that's for sure.
And I guess it's kind of you get in, you're into your 6th year now. Huh?
Yep.
And that means you just saw your first wave of kids go from year 7?
Yeah, we had a chat about that. So we have a homeroom at Santa Maria, so it's a big part of the community. So I was looked after them since they were year 7. Literally, so year 7 Delahoyde is my house, and I had them throughout the whole high school, and they've just graduated a month ago. Wow. So it's pretty weird, and they get their waste results in a few days. So
so with these, how many? That's quite an intimate group of girls.
Yep, so finished with 23, kind of fluctuated, kids come and go, but finished with 23.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And so in that role, what kind is the role, what hat do you wear?
So homeroom teacher is a complete partial care role. That's your main job. Like we start with 10 minutes in the morning, so do a prayer and read out the daily notices, but then because you see them every day, partial care for us is huge. So tracking kids, how they're doing, having those conversations. You do a bit of academic tracking as well, like how their results going. Right. So it's kind of, you just form a relationship with them. I guess you're their point of contact if they need something or have problems or whatever it might be.
Yeah, right. And what kind of, in that role with partial care, is that quite a common thing?
Yeah, partial care is huge at a school. Yeah.
Right. For other schools as well?
Yeah, and I think you just don't think about partial care. And lots of partial care roles, like a college psychologist, or even usually we have deans of year, and that's the key partial care role, as opposed to the academic role, which might be like a head of department department
Right.
type role.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you've got these group of 23 girls, give or take a few, and then you've got this huge responsibility to organising these 1,000 people events.
Yeah.
So managing those two things, it's, you know, and then you're 25, 26 years old, you're, you know, less than 10 years older than these girls are coming through.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of stress and pressure, hey?
100%. And it's interesting though, so when I took over head of sport, I wasn't meant to have a homeroom. Because that's, you know, it's a promotional position, but I actually asked to keep mine because I'd been with them since year 7 and I formed a really strong relationship. I reckon that's probably one of the best things I did because it meant that 10 minutes in the morning, as you said, I had those two big roles. For 10 minutes in the morning, I'm just their homeroom teacher. Okay. And we could just have chats, and as they got older into year 12, we had a bit of banter with them, have a bit of a laugh, even some venting with them because they're, you know, young women, but now in year 7, they're just bombarding you with questions, but you know, when they're a bit older, you can have those conversations. So it was a bit of a saving grace for me, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of led into this role, like we had a bit of a, you know, getting that responsibility in that. You know, I'm kind of learning through you different roles you have in schools. It's not just a teacher. You got all these pastoral care and then all these others. So, with the head of sports, what was that role? Kind of the doing this was organising those events, but as opposed to like a academic role where you're actually creating their curriculum and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And sports, I guess, unique. The physical education department is unique, and we've got 2 leadership roles. So you've got your acting head of department, and we call them head of PE, and they do all the curriculum and assessments, and they do all the head of department jobs like hiring staff and everything. And the head of sport almost sits underneath that as like a 2IC. And I run all the staffing for all the sport. So I, you know, allocate staff, do the staff rosters for all the different sports and things like that. So they're kind of 2 jobs that work together, but a little bit separate, I guess.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so you're going through now, and you know, you've done this group of kids who've supported through year 6, from year 7 up to now. And then you're probably at a bit of a, you know, where are you going with your career? Is this kind of like a lot of people sometimes get a bit itchy, 5 years, 6 years at a place. Do I want to move, or am I comfortable where I'm at? How have you kind of managed that?
Well, it's funny, if we'd have this chat about a year ago, I would have said that the moment I'd finished head of sport, I'd probably going to move elsewhere because it was a maternity leave cover. So there was always a date that she was coming back. And I would have said, no, I want to move on. I want to keep moving upwards. But it's been, to be honest, this job's been really tough. Like, it's been a full-on year. So I think about 6 months ago, I thought, you know, actually, I think, you know, staying at Santa and actually enjoying it and just going back to being a teacher again, I am actually really looking forward to, because that's the thing about a leadership role is it takes you out of the classroom and you do less with the students because you're having to do all the behind-the-scenes work. So yeah, I think a year ago I was like, yeah, no, I want to move on, keep going, like keep moving up in my career. Whereas now I think it's actually really nice to stay at Santa where I know the job really well and I've got some fantastic relationships with the students and keep that going. And
I guess there's also a role, like obviously with that increased responsibility comes associated stress, anxiety, pressure.
Yep.
To live up to expectations.
100%. Yeah.
And, you know, and then kind of obviously there's this degree of humility. Actually, I'm this role that I'm in, why am I being a teacher? And you told me in the past that you just love being with the kids. Yeah, I do. And that's probably the hardest thing about this job is it took me out of the classroom to do all this other stuff. But, you know, being a teacher, I love it. I call it my vocation. It's what I'm meant to be doing. I just love it. I love my role, and it's because of the students. It's not because of our success in an AGC sport or what the kids are achieving there, which is fantastic, but it's the relationships you build with those students. And, you know, I can talk about the girls in my homeroom, those 23 kids that I'd had since the start. Some of those relationships I had with them was so important, or helping them because they go through huge life events. You know, I had a student whose, her parents split up, and that was huge for her. And I was able to really, from my past experience, really talk to her about that and help her through it. And that meant everything to me, I think. And, or even if you look in a classroom, and I teach year 12 ATAR for PE studies, which is, a really hard subject. But if you're teaching biomechanics and you show them something or do a silly example or do a silly diagram on the board and they get it, it's just, you're like, yes, this is why I'm doing this job. And I think that's what I'm really looking forward to next year, because I can throw myself into the teaching part as opposed to it being that what had to get done. Like it was like my last kind of thing that I could do. Yeah, totally. So I guess it's a nice little segue, that balance into
Yep.
iyarn.
iyarn.
So you've got a nice little almost symmetrical thing here with family and sleep being the two real strong areas.
Yeah. I think it's holidays now, which probably changed. I reckon, again, if I'd done this a month ago, I reckon it might have been a little bit different. But since I finished, I've had heaps of family time, which has been so nice. And coming up to Christmas, you know, you're here and lots of the family's coming back. My sister arrives from London tomorrow and I just feel really blessed with that. And I've got a goddaughter and she's 3.5. And since I've been on holidays pretty much every day, I've just been hanging out with her and she's just at this best age. Yeah. And I love it because I can be really helpful with her and she knows me so well. So that's been really awesome to have that special time. So I guess that's probably why family is pretty high for me at the moment.
Totally. And does it take, you know, family being 8.5, which is really strong.
Yeah.
Does that shift much or?
For me, not really. I think my family would be right up there. Yeah. And they're my support circle. My circle's pretty small. I'm very honest about that. Like I keep my circle pretty small. It's with cousins and stuff and mum who I spend heaps of time with. And now my sister lives in Perth and I love that. We kind of just hang out and have family time, which I just love. So I'd say my family would be right up there, probably one of my highest all the time because it's really important to me. So, yeah. And
then some of these other ones?
Yeah. So sleep, as I said, holidays at the moment. So I'm really trying to catch up on lost sleep at the moment. And I used to fill up my holidays, you know, like, oh yeah, I got to keep busy or I don't want to just have time off and do nothing. And now I'm like, no, Liv, you need to take that time to relax and just plan nothing or just do some stuff just for yourself and sleep. Like sleep is so important. So yeah.
And having a good sleep routine. Do you have like a bit of a sleep routine?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I go pretty early. I'm a bit of a nana sometimes. I wake up pretty early. So yeah, I read like before I go to bed every night, like without fail. So that's a huge wind down time for me. Yeah. So you kind of, you know, get into bed and just read for as long as you kind of feel like, and then when you're ready to go to sleep. So I think that makes a huge difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what about, so these other ones, you got health contribution here around 6.2, 6.3.
Yeah. I think health is definitely one that would fluctuate for me. And, you know, we can look at health there's so many facets of health. But I kind of look at that as a general well-being. And I think it's probably a little bit lower for me at the moment because I'm pretty burnt out from work, to be honest. Like it takes me a little while to almost recover. And it sounds really silly, but it's not. Like you need that time to actually properly recover. So I can, at the moment, health, and I'd say it's been way lower than that this year. Like I think this has probably been one of the toughest years health-wise for me. Not only mental health, but also physical well-being, because I think when you're highly stressed, it puts a strain on your whole system, doesn't it? So, yeah.
And do you feel it's on a bit of upward trend now?
Yeah. Biggest relief. So finishing this job, as I said, I always had a time limit on it. It's a huge relief for me, and I just really want to focus on my health now, and got some few things in mind to do that over the next little while to really get back to it. Because same, you know, you're busy and you're stressed. What's the first thing to go? Exercise. I found I just didn't have the time because you're having to be sometimes at school at 6:15 in the morning for swimming training, and then you work all day, and then you've got extra sport in the afternoon or whatever. It's pretty full on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to some exercise and eating healthy and
right. And then this area of growth, like you're reading a lot. Are these books non-fiction, fiction?
Bit of both. Yeah, a bit of both. And it's something I've again got time for now to really focus on, and I want to get back to that learning a little bit. I've just signed up to learn Noongar language, which I'm really excited about. I found out from a friend you can do through Curtin University, and that's like a bit of my holiday, an hour a day, have some fun with that. Kardajan knowledge, is that right? Yeah. I'm learning a few words.
Yeah, but European feels good.
Yeah.
So it's really, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Learning a bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
And then so we had a bit of a conversation as well around, this kind of avenue to, I feel you're quite self-aware. You've got, you've got these areas that are bigger than areas that you're are growing out. But then you've also got, your ability. We've had a bit of a conversation bringing this into the classroom a bit.
Yeah, and I love it. And we've mentioned pastoral care, and I just think this could be such a cool thing to use in a pastoral care space. And at Santa Maria, over the last year, probably longer, they've had a huge focus on mental well-being. And I reckon a huge part of that is sharing and talking about it. And I think kids are funny sometimes. Some kids will open up to you, some kids don't, or they'll suffer in silence. Just the other day I had a kid and she was really not happy. She was almost having a bit of a panic attack, and I was speaking to her friend, and her friend, so she hasn't told anyone. And her friend, so that meant that this young girl was great in that she was sharing with her friends, which I think is important, but she wasn't then sharing with anyone else, and that puts a lot of...
As in, like, yourself?
Yeah, so they weren't sharing with anyone.
Right.
They were just sharing with each other as teenagers, and you're like, they're not equipped to necessarily deal with that, and there's a lot of, pressure, a lot of burden on lots of them.
Right.
So sometimes they're really good at sharing, but sometimes they're not, and I think this could be such a cool way to, I guess, quantify what they're feeling. And you hesitate to put a number on things, but sometimes that number is actually really, really important. And I think an iyarn in a homeroom could be so cool. Like I mentioned to you, like what if you did every Friday? You're like, all right, let's do an iyarn and just have a bit of a look. And if you notice a bit of a change, I think we spoke about being quite subtle about, check in with that student. You don't have to be like, you got a 3. Why did you get a 3? But you can be like, actually, like her wheel looks quite different from last week. I wonder what's going on for her, and maybe do some subtle check-ins, like just a, hey, how are you doing today? Or,
on the side, or maybe if you see trends over the last 3 weeks. This is actually consistently. It's usually at a 7 or an 8. Now it's maybe a 4. And then that could be your catalyst to doing it. But you don't want to be like, the helicopter parent and a helicopter sibling or whatever you call it.
And I said to you before, I think the cool thing about iyarn is some kids don't want to share, but this is a really cool way for them to. So let's say they're holding on to something, like this girl was holding on to, her mental health, that she was really struggling, but she wasn't telling anyone. But, what if she goes, in my iyarn, I'm actually going to be really truthful today. That's almost like a reaching out for help, isn't it? And it's a really easy way for them to do that without going, Miss Gamble, I'm really struggling today, can you help me? That might be hard, but then scoring or, doing a really honest wheel, I think that's really powerful.
Well, it's been really interesting, and there are a number of schools who've reached out saying they want to launch this for next year and engage with it throughout their network in that kind of formula, then align it with the values, internal teachers, and just kind of offering that solution. So, but for next year, we'll certainly have this like bespoke school solution. And
I think it could be cool for staff as well. Like I spoke to you about how I struggled with this role and the responsibility, but you hide it from other staff. You don't want to, I wish we were in a world where you could be really clear about mental health, but I think that we're not quite there yet. But I think this could be such a tool to track staff wellbeing, which is proven to be just as important as students. Like it shouldn't just be student focused. What about the staff and keeping track of them, but just more that I think you're right, and you call it a check-in. It's not like an assessment. It's not anything. It's just so people keep in the loop and how people are going, and even knowing baselines, like knowing what people are on an everyday basis and tracking that, I think could be really cool.
Oh, awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing your aggregated wheel.
For
the school, maybe next year.
Hope we'll check in. We'll do that.
So if there was one area of this wheel that you think you could increase by a decimal placing or something like that, which could increase the overall score, what would it be, and what would you do?
I think friends. Like for me, I think because I was so busy, I think I probably stepped away from a lot of friends a little bit. You just struggle for time. You're just shattered at the end of the day, and it's kind of with family, it's different. It's not as much work. Like I know friends can be that too, but it's a little bit different. So I think I really want to start reaching out back to those friends again that maybe I lost touch with, and use my holidays. That's what they're for. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for having an eye on you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh.